Hi there. I am with this precious person over here, Adrienne Etkin. She is a friend of mine. We've known each other for I don't even know how many years.
A long time.
I've been wanting to do something like this and interview her because she is a tea encyclopedia. She knows a lot about tea. And we are in her beautiful shop. It's Admari Tea is the name of her company. And she does have a website, and we'll put it in the notes, but it's admaritea.com. And I'll let you know at the end if you're interested in purchasing more tea or learning more about tea and even coming to visit the shop. So you were talking about how each society has their own tea culture. Mm-hmm. And when we think of tea culture, we think of China, Japan, absolutely for sure, and then India to a degree. How, amongst those cultures, you just said that like the monks brought tea from China to Japan. Can you talk a little bit about how that evolved and what they share with each other and how they differ a little bit?
For sure, and that's a great question because to evaluate the differences between Chinese tea culture and Japanese tea culture is enormous. And to actually demonstrate that while we're sitting here talking about it, I will make some Japanese tea.
Oh,
okay. We won't do matcha, but I will do. We'll do some other Japanese tea.
So this is more traditional, what we just did, Chinese style.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So the method that we prepared, gong fu cha, actually originated in Guangdong, China, in a place called Chaozhou. And the first recorded history writing is a couple hundred years ago. A gentleman was a Chinese philosopher was writing about drinking. Actually, I believe the book was about culinary exploration. Mm-hmm. And he was writing about it being in Chaozhou Mountains, in the Chaozhou region.
Where is that? So we have an idea geographically.
So if I have this imaginary map that I like to pull down here. So here's China. So if you're looking at China and you can see Hong Kong here, right? Mm-hmm. And then you go north from Hong Kong, that next province up there is Guangdong. Okay, and then up the next one up is Fujian. So what I'm talking about is, we could fly into Hong Kong and hop on a train and go up to Guangdong, Phoenix Mountains, and go to Chaozhou. And this gentleman wrote about drinking tea out of cups the size of walnut shells.
Oh my goodness.
So that's where we believe the history of this began, although different regions in China, of course, would have different preparation methods that would make sense for them at that time and practicality. In Japan, so the difference between Japanese and Chinese tea cultures you can actually see in the growing, in the processing, and in the service. Okay. So it is totally different. I like to think of the Japanese way as a very much more precise, very zen, very clean and succinct. And the Chinese way, I would like to sum that up as being a little more passionate and feeling and a little more human. Like it's messier, okay? So when I'm doing Gong Fu, we've got water. It's more human, When we're doing Japanese, it's very precise and I mean, it's just so beautiful. It's just such beautiful art. I mean, they're all beautiful arts.
They're all aesthetic. Beautiful. It's such attention to detail, more so with Japanese tea culture.
No, they're both riddled with attention to detail, just in such different ways. Mm-hmm. If I showed you an image of the Chinese tea fields or Chinese tea gardens versus Japanese tea gardens, you would see immediately what I'm talking about. So it's hard for me to verbalize that.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
But what we're going to do is, so that you can experience a little bit of a complete difference.
I love it.
We're going to do one of my new Japanese green teas that just arrived from Shizuoka. Shizuoka is one of my favorite tea growing regions in Japan. Shizuoka is a very, let's see, it's still too hot. So I'm trying to get the water down to 155 because we really want a much cooler water to have a very slow extraction. So I was talking about this earlier about the chemicals and then the water temperatures, but let's put that two together. So different things will be extracted out of the tea leaf at different temperatures. So caffeine extracts at a higher temperature than theanine. So when we steep this at a much cooler temperature, we get a higher level of theanines, which give us a more umami, round characteristic. So, so Shizuoka. So this is what for us, is called Sakura Spring. So sakura leaves have a very distinctive aroma, and this tea cultivar is developed because it has that strong aroma, which...
Question. Okay, I've seen the word sakura. A lot of people use
cherry
that.
blossom.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. So sakura means cherry blossom.
Right. So when you smell this, what do you smell?
It's a little bit fruitier.
There's a little fruity. If I say tarragon, does that make sense to you? Yeah,
absolutely.
So for me, I get a very strong tarragon aroma with this tea. And I want to get that extracted into this experience. Okay, so I am weighing these leaves just because different teas have different volumes. I eyeball most of the time. But with Japanese teas, I like the precision. When you're precise with the Japanese teas, you are rewarded.
And this tea is totally different from the Lapsang Souchong.
Oh, completely.
These are like...
night and day.
And these have been steeped. And how many times can you steep these?
We can steep this probably 6 more times.
Yeah. So, and these are still, you know, big, whole lot. You know, they're the whole leaf.
Absolutely. So we're gonna put this to the side, and I'm gonna drink it later. All right. Our water should be at a good temperature now. So we are gonna warm our teapot. This is called this is a kyusu. Kyusu is a teapot. It's a side-handled teapot, and we want to keep this. We want to make this very warm so that when we put the tea leaves in here, we'll have this. So I'm going to reach behind you to get some cups. So cups make a difference. All of your little teaware makes a difference.
Just like wine.
Just like wine.
The right glass
so
for the right
we're going to
wine.
use these beautiful Japanese porcelain cups that actually were a gift from a friend of my mom's. She's a wonderful woman who gave me this beautiful Japanese tea set.
I want to just look.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, they're beautiful. They have butterflies on them. I don't know if you can see
So
that.
beautiful.
And they're just delicate and gorgeous.
They are. Okay. You want to finish?
Oh yeah, let me.
All right. So, when we this would traditionally be called senchado, this preparation method, the way of sencha. It's just a more casual tea preparation method.
So this is warming.
We're just
warming the cups.
So we used about 3.5 grams. This is an 8-ounce pot. So if you noticed before, the Gong Fu tea preparation method, it's about ratios. So we used probably about 4 to 5 grams of Lapsang Souchong for maybe 3 to 4 ounces of water. So we're using less tea and a lot more water. for the senchado, for the Japanese tea preparation. When we talk about Western tea preparation, it's the same idea. Western tea preparation, we have a lower volume of leaves to a higher ratio of water. So. So one of the distinctive characteristics of Japanese teas, and this is a Japanese green tea, and it's steamed to cease the oxidation. So when we steam these Japanese teas, we leave a lot of the antioxidant, a lot of the chemicals and minerals, or everything's intact. But it's steamed, so it can also give off a vegetal aroma, or even a salty aroma. And Shizuoka is by the sea. So that's for me, I mean, it's Japan, so everything's by the sea, but you know, you can almost taste the ocean air, you know? It's, I thought I had my ringer off. Sorry. So we are now at 155.
Okay, so these are ground leaves.
They're not ground, they're cut. So the Lapsang Souchong, as you saw, they were, you know, they're more voluminous, they're left intact, they're whole leaf. The Japanese style is more of a cut leaf here. So you can actually even see. Which does mean that there's a more surface area. So there's a higher extraction. So that's why one of the reasons the cooler water is beneficial, so that, again, we're extracting flavorful. These types of pots, you'll see have, when I pour out, you'll see a much bigger mesh covering, so that the leaf stays within the pot and not in your cup. Although the tea in your cup is a great thing. You drink that and it's very healthy for you. So this we want to do about a minute. Okay. So the other steep you saw was 30 seconds, 45 seconds, super fast. This we want to allow the tea to release. Okay, so while we're waiting, you have like these beautiful things around your table. Like, I do. Talk to me about the spread. So this is called a chashi, okay? Chashi, tea stage, all right? And when we have a tea stage, we build our tea stage in order to permit these leaves, whatever we're preparing, to shine. For me, on my tea stage and for our tea table here, I have things that connect me to the cycles of nature, to my ancestors, my family. For example, my grandmother is always here with us at the tea table. This is her chop mark. This is Shirley. I love chops. Yeah, so this is her name in Chinese that she used to stamp her watercolors and her paintings with. And it's made out of jade. It is jade. And so today it's, for this full moon, it's on the tea table. So we have a Pisces full moon and a Virgo sun. So I have crystals on the table that represent those energies. So we have our amethyst, we have our citrine. I don't know this one's name, but I like it. We have Ganesha, the remover of obstacles. We have some lovely feathers. I find feathers everywhere. So we have feathers incorporated everywhere into our decor. Oh my God, the color is totally different. It's even a little milky looking, or is that just? No, that's it's the residual, the tea. This filter is not as fine as my other one. So we want to get it all, so there's no water in there. You see the filter? Yes. So you see how bright it is, and we did let it steep longer than I had wanted, but that's okay. Because we were talking. Because we were talking. We were talking, and it was important. So if you want to take a big, deep aroma. Oh my goodness. I mean, I get the sakura leaves. Yeah, it's very floral. Yeah. Very floral. Oh, that's beautiful.
And we can slurp again.
Yeah. Now, Japanese green tea will get you tea high. Chinese tea will get you tea drunk.
What's the difference?
One is a little more ethereal, tea high with some energy. I mean, Japanese green tea has a high level of theanine as well as a decent amount of caffeine. And that tea high, every time we get our Japanese shipments that day, I'm just like on a cloud, just super happy. And tea drunk?
I have to drink more Japanese tea.
Yes,
Clearly.
Japanese tea is a great work tea. I highly recommend Japanese teas, and we could do a whole Japanese tea class for you.
So I have to tell you, she has a blend of her own tea called Kik-Assam.
Kik-Assam.
And I will have a glass of that in the afternoon as a pick-me-up because it really it definitely kicks your ass. So
it's an all-natural Red Bull. It's kick-ass. So Kik-Assam has been our bestseller for 15 years.
It's so delicious.
We named it after Assam, which is a region in India. And part of the blend is black tea from Assam. But kick-ass in the AM was the idea as well, is that we get up in the morning and we drink our kick-Assam and we kick-ass all day.
And whereas coffee, you get the jitters, you never get that, I think, with
You never get it with tea because it's not as harsh on the body. I mean, coffee is delicious and a little bit of coffee every day is great, but obviously tea is a nicer effect on the body.
Yeah. I'll never forget, this was several years ago. I was in California visiting my daughter, and we went to this tea house in Santa Cruz.
Oh, amazing.
And it was amazing. And I'm like, it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'm like drinking tea. You know, like I probably had a whole pot of whatever tea it was. I can't remember what I couldn't sleep that night. I was like up. You know?
But you were productive. You probably weren't just laying there. You probably got up and did something. I always find that the caffeine high or the tea high from tea is a more productive awakeness.
Yes.
You know, it's like you've got to do something.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, caffeine and tea there's still caffeine. So the Kik-Assam, the idea was that we blended that to get people to get off of coffee if they needed to for medical reasons or because they wanted to. And so we used Assam again, which is a good caffeine content. But then we also blended with Chinese fermented tea called pu'er and yerba mate from Argentina.
Oh, it does have yerba
It has mate in it.
Okay.
It's that kick. And then we blended with especially ground cardamom. So we take cardamom seeds.
That's the aromatic part.
And we
It's
grind
so
it
good.
ourselves. We allow the oils to soak into the mate, and then we blend all of those ingredients with honeybush. And honeybush is a South African botanical.
Oh.
And the South African botanical honeybush is a sister plant to rooibos.
Oh, okay.
So it's got a more tobacco notes. It gives the blend body, but it also is calming and smooth, soft muscle tissue. So you're getting all these stimulants, but you've got this nice, calm honeybush in there too. So Kik-Assam is pretty kick-ass.
Right. Anyway, we diverge.
We diverge.
We diverge. This is delicious. So floral and so beautiful.
And the Sakura. So this is a cultivar called Shizu 7132. Some cultivars have really beautiful names. And when I talk about cultivars, again, I'm talking about the variety of tea. So in China, we've got beautiful names for some of our cultivars, like Shui Jingwei, golden water turtle, or Bashian, 8 immortals. And in India, we have names like AV Chu or CR132. And then in Japan, we have a mix of cultivars that like Seimidori or Shizu 7132. Shizu 7132 was developed more recently. They do develop new cultivars. My favorite cultivar was one that was developed in Taiwan in the 80s, which is called Golden Lily or Jinshuan. And I have a attachment to it. It's really delicious, but it's a very special cultivar.
Okay, so I mean, we all just either drink traditionally, most of us grew up like you boil the water, you put the tea bag in, you steep it, and you put sugar or honey or milk if you do it British style. My family's from Russia. We put, sugar cube between our teeth and then sip, and maybe we'll put lemon in it, you know? This is a totally different experience, and it's also like a smoother tea. So whereas if I didn't put, sugar, and maybe in England if they didn't put the milk in, it would.
If they didn't put the milk in,
it would be very harsh.
It would be a harsh, bitter brew. Yeah. And back in the day, originally, you were drinking tea for that forte, for the strength. You're drinking the tea not because it's delicious and divine and you're getting in touch with yourself. Yeah. You're drinking it because you need to go to work. Yeah. And back in the day, milk, was better than water. So you would definitely add your milk to the
boil. So if you boiled the water.
You boil the water because it was not good water. But what's important to note about milk and tea and milk in black tea is tannins will bind to the fat molecules and negate them. So that's why if you make a very, very strong cup of black tea and you drink it and you're like, oh my God, it's too tannic or too bitter, or it's just too much. But you add some milk, those molecules will bind to the fat molecule, the tannin will bind to the fat molecules. That's why when I do tea mixology and I infuse vodka or rum or anything with tea, we will use black tea or heavy tea to extract those tea-like flavors, but we don't want that bitterness. So we will fat wash them. So we will mix the alcohol after it's been infused with tea with some sort of fat, coconut oil, bacon fat, and then we'll freeze that, take the fat out, and then the liquor, whatever was infused with that, will be delicious and have all of those flavors, but we'll wash out.
I remember that I went to an event that you did at the Center for Subtropical Affairs where you were doing mixology and you made some of the most delicious cocktails. Yes. Tea with alcohol, it's a thing and it's delicious. Who are you doing it with? Which brand?
Oh, so we with Bacardi, Havana Club Rum, and Saint Germain.
At Saint Germain, right?
Yeah, Saint Germain. Right. I have to tell you, Saint Germain and tea is a match made in heaven, 100%. Yeah. Because of, the fact that it's an elderflower liqueur. But one of my favorite things of all time is cold steeped Thai Mountain Taiwanese oolong. So cold steeping meaning we're putting it in a pint jar, or we actually just got those cold steep bottles in. You put it in the refrigerator overnight, allow a very slow cold extraction of the tea, which will create a very viscous, thick, floral, delightful elixir. And then you blend it with a little champagne and then a little bit of Saint Germain. And it is
that sounds delicious, and I might have to get that before I leave today because that sounds like Sunday morning to me.
That is. It is the best brunch cocktail. It is Sunday morning with the New York Times, 100%.
Oh my goodness, it's so funny. See how versatile tea is, and we are so unaware of it because there's a variety of teas and then the versatility of it.
Tea is endless, and that's the beauty of it. I've been studying tea for 20 years, and I have still much to learn and dive into. Even though I'm here all the time, when I go home, I am researching and reading and writing about tea, and it's endless, and the applications are endless. And then when we start adding in botanicals and other plants, it's a really fascinating history.
Okay, so we talked about Chinese, we've talked about Japanese. What about India?
Yes, let's talk about India. So we have some phenomenal Indian teas. We have some really, really wonderful, strong connections in India. And I have to tell you, we've got great Darjeeling. Darjeeling's famous. Everybody loves Darjeeling teas. And Assam. Everybody loves Assam. But there's a region called Nilgiri in the south of India that in the past was regulated to producing, pretty commercial grade black tea. In the south, Nilgiri black teas were used a lot in iced tea blends. Sweet tea would be maybe a Nilgiri black tea blended with some Kenyan black tea, something like that. But Nilgiri is producing these incredible specialty teas, these Highland teas, these winter harvest teas that are out of this world exquisite. And so I've been recently falling in love with their specialty market. Traditionally, tea in India was consumed with milk and spices as chai, masala chai.
Yeah.
So when we talk about, you order your chai latte, chai just means tea. All right, masala chai means the tea mixture of spices. Masala is a mixture of spices. So masala chai, that started the spread of tea through the train stations and the railways. And the British government would set up actually tea stalls into all of these different railways. So tea was spread, the native Indian population were not big tea consumers. The initial tea industry was established by the British to export tea. They ended up, okay, well, we can get more people drinking tea, right? In India, so let's establish these chaiwalas, these chai stands, these tea stands throughout the railway stations. And each region, each village would be have their own array of spices, Each family, there's as many chai masala recipes as there are families. Everybody has their different recipe, and everybody's, my mom's is better, and we have people coming in the store all the time. I'm a chai person, but I'm really particular, and I totally get that. Spices are very particular, and that's why I always recommend, maybe you make your own. You get a really good base of black tea, and then you choose the spices that you want, and you blend it yourself at home. You boil it with some milk. You add a lot of sugar.
So what spices are in?
Traditional ginger, star anise, cinnamon, clove, cardamom, green cardamom, pepper. A number of spices, but you could really do anything. So the Indian tea culture is constantly evolving. Just like American tea culture is constantly evolving. We have
So tea isn't native to India.
Tea is native to India.
It is, okay.
Tea is native to India. However, the tea that is grown in mass quantities in Darjeeling is not native Indian tea. It's Chinese varietals. So Camellia sinensis is the tea of China. Sinensis is the Latin term for China, Camellia sinensis. And then we've got Camellia sinensis assamica. And assamica is the species that's native to India. But that's native to the north of India, in Assam. Okay. So tea was, planted there with the idea for export. In the 1700s, late 1600s, 1700s. And then by way of Sri Lanka also started out as a coffee growing nation. But they experienced terrible blight on the coffee crops, coffee rust. And at that time, there were some people experimenting with growing tea in Sri Lanka. And guess what? Because all the coffee plants were wiped out, they ended up planting tea everywhere in Sri Lanka, and now Ceylon, Sri Lanka, is some of the most well-known tea in the world. So, which is amazing.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So, okay, I want to talk about matcha tea.
Absolutely.
Because that's really growing in popularity. It has health benefits. It's delicious. So I want to learn a little bit more about matcha and how that came about.
So matcha, again, I mentioned earlier, is the most healthful form of tea we can consume because we are consuming the entire leaf instead of just an extracted leaf. So like for this, we've steeped this in water. We're drinking the extraction. We do have some leaves in our cup. That's great. And I will cook with these Japanese tea leaves later.
Oh, you will?
So I will absolutely cook with them because I get as many antioxidants as I can get So cooking with these and eating these, consuming these is a very healthy thing to do. So I'll saute them. So I do a couple of things, but normally I'll just saute them with sesame oil and soy sauce, and saute them with rice or potatoes. But rice is really good to throw these in. And I've also made a green tea pesto. And one of my favorite things to do with Japanese green tea leaves is to put them on my pizzas.
Oh.
So I love putting them on pizza. And I think a green tea pizza would be divine. So the combination of these kind of, I mean, taste the leaves.
Right, we never do those.
I mean, like with some oregano, a little olive oil.
Yeah, it's kind of like spinach or something.
Exactly. Absolutely.
And probably healthier because spinach has just been, cultivated in vast.
I love spinach too.
I do too. I love greens. But this is delicious.
Yeah, so we are, by eating the leaf, we are consuming the whole plant. So matcha, we consume the whole plant. Now, matcha came about in the Song Dynasty. Powdered tea came about in the Song Dynasty after. I don't want to get too much into the history of tea, and there were 3 different eras of tea, but in the Song Dynasty, we started whisking our tea.
Okay.
We started using a whisk, a chasen, and so whisk our tea. Matcha, not only is it a mindful ritual that you can get into, it really is delicious. You're getting the energy to push through your day, but it also has that focus. It has a high level of theanine, so you're really focused and getting your work done. We as Americans really enjoy matcha lattes and matcha cookies and matcha ice cream, and you're throwing matcha and everything. And that's fine, but I am a big proponent of really good matcha. I'm a purist, man. I'm a purist.
I don't blame you.
The greatest thing is when I have people come into the store and I make them real matcha for the first time. And then they love matcha lattes, but that's just milk and sugar.
It's like an epiphany when they have the real.
And they have the real thing and they, oh, this is what matcha tastes like. Either they've had matcha that's too bitter because the water's been too hot, or it's just milk and sugar. You're not drinking really in a green tea flavor. So really good matcha should be round and creamy and sweet on its own. It's different flavor profiles because obviously we have a plethora of different cultivars to make matcha out of. Our matcha that we carry is from Uji and is from a family that's been producing matcha for hundreds of years. And
matcha is, where is it from?
Japan.
Japan,
yeah,
okay.
Japan. Well, what we consider matcha these days and what we drink, the origin should be Japan. There is matcha being produced in China, but really the way that we should be drinking our matcha is based on the Japanese production and methodology of preparing matcha. Matcha has inspired an entire way of life. So cha do or cha dao is the way of tea, and cha do is it's what I actually have tattooed on my body.
Oh, really?
And the principles: harmony, tranquility, purity, and respect. Wake seijaku, and it's the principles of the Japanese tea ceremony. And that whole ceremony revolves around preparing one bowl of matcha. You study 10 years in these traditional Japanese lineages to learn how to prepare tea properly, and that's a minimum of study,
Wow.
So it's very in-depth and amazing. It's an amazing art form. Yeah.
So, all right, so if I'm gonna drink matcha every day, I'm whisking it.
I recommend, so we actually do have a tea that's matcha genmaicha. Matcha genmaicha is a Japanese sencha blended with puffed rice and then blended with matcha. So it's we can steep it in our kyusu, so it's an easier way to get your matcha, so you're not whisking it every morning, so you're making it just like you would make a pot of tea. However, I am a big proponent of whisking a bowl, if you want a bowl of matcha, whisking a bowl of matcha, because it's also the mindful ritual of your tea preparation. So a lot of times we'll have people come into the store, and through many years I've been doing this, the same thing keeps ringing through. I don't have time to make tea, or I don't have time to do this. And if you don't have 5 minutes to make tea, then you need to sit down for an hour and meditate. You know, you 100%.
Exactly.
So take 5 minutes and whisk a nice bowl of matcha. Sit, inhale the aroma, connect inward, become aware of everything around you, and just drink your tea, and then go off about into the world and do what you have to do. But
And what temperature should the water be for matcha?
so I use about 185, 190.
Okay, that's hot.
It's
That's
hot,
up
but
there
it's for our,
compared to some of
but
the-
it's our matcha. I know our matcha is very good. Our there's not a lot of bitterness that can be extracted. The matchas on the market that are more mainstream matchas, I would recommend 180, 175. I also recommend trying both, seeing what you like. Maybe,
that's a
you
good
know, I
idea,
made this
yeah.
particular tea for a guest, really cool. And she said, yeah, it's okay, but could you make it hotter for me? And so then I upped the temperature and I made it hotter. And she loved it that way.
Well, some people just like, you know, you get your coffee or whatever and it's like not hot enough. You know, sometimes it's
Absolutely.
also
It's
just
personal
what
preference.
you're used to. Yeah.
I mean, everybody has their own preferences, and that's what makes tea so beautiful. There's something for everybody.
Yeah.
I have yet to experience anyone coming and having tea with me, even if they came in and they sat down and they says, I don't like tea. I am not a tea person. I am not. I have members in our tea community that came in and said, I do not like tea. You will never convert me. 20 minutes later, they're like, oh my God, tea is the best thing ever. So we can find something for everybody in tea, whether it's botanicals or true tea. And a lot of times I have people coming in that say, I can't drink true tea because I can't do caffeine. Oh. And so I say, okay. And then we work together. And eventually they realize that no, they just can't have caffeine and coffee. Like they can't drink
totally different.
They can't drink coffee. They can drink tea. I have a customer, she has been with me now for 3 years. She started out only doing botanicals, florals. Now we got her started on some white teas, and then we started moving her into some green teas and some oolongs, and she is obsessed with oolong now. Obsessed. So it's, we evolve.
Yeah,
Culture evolves,
absolutely.
we evolve, our tastes evolve. Yeah.
And I think it's like cooking, you just have to like try it and experiment with it and kind of just experience tea for all the varieties and what it is. So, is there something else, what else do you want to talk about while we're sitting here? Is there something that I know there's a lot to talk about, but is there anything else you want to touch on while we're talking here? Because what I do want to do is come back and maybe do like the mixology.
Okay. Everybody loves that.
Right? It's like,
because it is super fun.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's a new way to look at also how it's an honest way to look at how we consume alcohol in our society. And if maybe we are more intentional about our alcohol consumption, we won't drink so much, as a society. Because, and tea makes phenomenal zero-proof alternatives. So when we start exploring tea mixology with and without spirits, it gets really interesting for everybody. So yes, absolutely.
I love that.
And
We'll have to do that another time.
I mean, I would love to talk about these bowls.
I
because
do. Yes, thank you. 'Cause, all right, everybody knows I am a pottery person. I love ceramics. If you look at the YouTube channel, you'll see we've done interviews with several ceramic artisans. So yes, please.
Yeah. So I'm low-key obsessed with these bowls,
They're
and for a couple of reasons. So one, they do make a perfect little matcha bowl when you just want a small little bowl of matcha. Traditional matcha bowls will have a different shape to it, but I actually enjoy this for matcha. But what this really is great for is leaves in a bowl tea meditation. So we just throw some leaves in here, we sit, we explore, we connect with the leaves, we connect with the bowl. It's like a meditation tool. But it's a tea bowl too, So the artist that creates these is our tea brother in the Catskills named Ben Suga. And he is, he is a master artist, and he creates these with the intention of tea and connection. And they're absolutely beautiful, and that's...
What makes that kind of like an ideal tea bowl?
For me,
Yeah.
and I can only speak for me,
Sure.
but for me, it's the connection of the physical bowl in my hands with the tea in here. So for me, this is when I'm working and when I'm sitting, even just picking this bowl up, my shoulders automatically relax. Do you know that feeling? I don't know if you practice yoga or you do any sort of exercise or anything that brings peace and calm to you. I touch my yoga mat and I feel better. Like I pick up this bowl and I feel better. Like even if there's no tea in it. So for me, these are a tool.
Yeah, and the shape of it feels good in your hand,
good.
and it just sort of like fits.
It fits here, it fits here.
Yeah.
When you're drinking, out of the bowl, it's last night we did this cosmic tea and sound healing with gongs at Namo Gallery, and it was absolutely breathtaking to sit in community, and everybody had their own bowl.
Yeah.
And we're all just connecting. And it feels good.
The energy must have been amazing.
It was really cool.
Gosh, yeah. So those are beautiful.
Yeah.
So is that what are these all from that
These
same
are all
artist?
from Ben. Yeah. All of these are from
Beautiful.
Ben.
The glazes
and
are
the glazes are
gorgeous.
gorgeous, and they're just spectacular. I mean, and his attention to detail.
Yeah.
Each one is slightly different. And when people come in to pick out their bowls, I ask them, go feel them. You have to please pick out the design, hold it, see that it feels good, it speaks to you.
Yes, absolutely. Clay is kind of like
clay is amazing. I mean,
Definitely.
we have a nice selection of teaware. Eventually, of course, I would love to have a much more in-depth selection of teaware. Tea is an all-encompassing.
You have a lot, though. I mean.
Yeah, I would really like to we'll have our Taiwanese teaware arriving sometime in the next month and a half.
Really? Yeah.
So that'll be exciting. We have our clay pots there, but these are all the things we use. Our gaiwans, kyusu, there's all sorts of different teaware. Tea preparation is very simple. All you need is a bowl, some hot water, and some leaves. However, all of these tea tools and this teaware can really deepen the experience,
Beautiful. So anyway, Adrienne, I want to thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much,
and your
Melissa.
knowledge and sharing tea with us. And so let me tell you, it's Admari tea.
Yeah, and Admari, Admari. My name is Adrienne. My mother is Marianne, and my father is Richard. Oh. So Admari. So we named it after us.
Oh, I love that. I was wondering. I had a feeling it had something like that. But so it's Admari.com.
Admaritea.com.
Admaritea.com. And then if you want to visit when you're here, and I absolutely 2000% recommend that you do that, it's in Little River, in the Ebb and Flow dining and
shopping and
whatever,
dining
shopping
district
and
destination
dining district.
in the Little River. It's on 82nd and 2nd, right down the street from the Citadel. So
There you go.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Melissa.